Hi, it's Stina and welcome to my magical world of music, HBTV. Okay, so before we get started, I just want to say thank you to my patrons for being there for me this year and sticking by me while I made my solo EP. So in return, I wanted to give you something new, fresh and exciting and share my love of music with you guys. With that in mind, we're starting off with a musical live session from the exceptional Fourth Door.
My thought is we nearly go short. No doubt, no time to think about it clearly, I'm sure, no doubt. So set in motion and hear me lay down without my doubt. And hear me, and hear me, and hear me. Even with all that I know, we're short on time. 'Cause if reason was the only let go, then it's mine to try. I'm not saying it's right, but it's on my mind. I'm not saying I've tried, but that could be implied. 'Cause since we go short and no one knows, surely makes it. 'Cause if searching the unknown is a reach to uphold, I'm mistaken. 'Cause since we go short and no one knows, surely makes it. 'Cause if searching the unknown is a reach to uphold, I'm mistaken. Maybe I'm chasing shadows if I set it aside. So I lay it out, maybe that's shallow. It doesn't ease up my mind. So don't be sure there's no proof, no one's tried to reach out. Then I'm thrown, but she won't know, won't be told. I'm not fooled that there's no reason to confide. I'm not saying it's right, but it's on my mind. Not saying I've tried, but that could be implied. 'Cause since we go short and no one knows, surely makes it. 'Cause if searching the unknown is a reach to uphold, I'm mistaken. 'Cause since we go short and no one knows, surely makes it. 'Cause if searching the unknown is a reach to uphold, I'm mistaken. I'm mistaken.
Do you like to learn stuff? Because I like to learn stuff, and that's really lucky because we have Niall and he's going to teach us some sciencey stuff about a microphone.
Have you ever asked yourself the question, is this thing on? What about, how is this thing on? Well, lucky for you, 1 2 1 2, check check, 1 2 3 4. My name is Niall and you might recognize me from such bands as I Can't Quite Remember, and You Look Like That Guy. And I'm sorry, I was simply thinking of someone else. When I'm not rocking out in relative obscurity, I'm here communicating the science behind how things work. Today, I'm going to be talking about the humble microphone. The first question to ask is, what is a microphone? A microphone is defined as an instrument that converts sound waves into electrical energy, which can then be amplified, transmitted, or recorded. But how does it do that? Sound is the movement of energy through a substance, like air or water, and is caused by vibrations. Take this guitar. The sound we hear is caused by the strings vibrating. That energy is then transferred through the air as waves. Sound waves. Unlike light energy, sound cannot travel through a vacuum. That's because you need atoms to transmit the vibrations. You need a medium like air for sound waves to travel through. That's why, in the vacuum of space, even though we can see you, no one can hear you scream. Microphones are a type of transducer. A transducer converts energy from one form to another. Microphones are transducers that turn sound energy into electrical energy. They do this through use of a diaphragm, a thin membrane that moves in reaction to sound pressure. Microphones work using electromagnetic induction. Sound waves hit the thin diaphragm, causing it to move. This diaphragm is attached to a copper wire coil inside a magnet, and this magnet creates a magnetic field around that coil. And so, sound waves vibrate the diaphragm, and this in turn vibrates the copper wire coils. The copper wire coils move inside the magnetic field, inducing an electric current. This electric current is the sound signal, but in electrical energy. To hear this back through a speaker, it's the same process, just in reverse. The electric current goes into the copper wire coil. This vibrates a diaphragm. This gives us sound waves, turning our electrical energy back to sound energy once more, and making a little something I like to call sweet music, yeah! Thanks to our transducer and electromagnetic induction, you're about to get the gift of me and a trusty microphone, singing Meatloaf's Bat Out of Hell, a cappella, the full 9-minute 52 album version. A 1, 2, 3, like a bat out of hell, up and gone. One really did hit my head quite hard there.
Up next, we have a session from yours truly. Yay!
Seen you out late last night, you were showing such a good time. You were hanging on to the bush, she was hanging on your every line. And I drew a little breath and told myself, welcome by. No, 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 drama, drama, baby. No, no, drama, drama, baby. It used to be all about you, but now you're out of my view. No, no, drama, drama, baby. No, no, drama, drama, baby. It used to be all about you, but now you're out of my view. No, no, drama, drama, baby. No, no, drama, drama, baby. Do I miss your wildfire? I confess sometimes. But burns of the 3rd degree gave me a scarred for life. All the best, you're the one who comes next. She's a braver girl than I. No, 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 drama, drama, baby. No, no, drama, drama, baby. It used to be all about you, but now you're out of my view. No, no, drama, drama, baby. No, no, drama, drama, baby. It used to be all about you, but now you're out of my view. No, no, drama, drama, baby. No, no, drama, drama, baby. And as I see you sat there, drooling into your pints, I say a little prayer, 'cause you're out of my life. Ooh. No, no, drama, drama, baby. No, no, drama, drama, baby. It used to be all about you, but now you're
during the absolute shit show that has been this year, I was able to catch up with personal friend and musical hero of mine, Melissa Auf Der Mar, about her venue and the effects of COVID on Basilica Hudson and what it's like to be a musician in this era. In this session, we are talking to Melissa Auf Der Mar. Hello, how are you, Melissa?
Hello, HBTV, I like that.
So we are joining you on Zoom via Canada right now.
I am vacationing in Canada during the pandemic, yes. I've come to my homeland so that my daughter could go to uninterrupted real-life school and have play dates because New York was not offering that right now.
Totally. Seems like it's idyllic for a lot of us at the moment, the idea of that, although that seems like such a normal thing to do, but I'm sure that it's been amazing to be able to have that freedom.
And similar to everybody just unlocking from what you were locked into, you know, like I've seen it, nothing but because I'm a mother to a young child, you know, that's I think been a theme for a lot of people, is like the unhooking from whatever it was that kept you out of the house and kept you moving and stressing and doing. You know, I've personally been very grateful for the shift, and in fact at the beginning of the pandemic, actually there's a good story to kick off the conversation about music and changes. And Courtney and I, the former Hole bandmates, we had been talking for 20 years about a reunion or not a reunion. And in 2018, my music venue, Basilica Hudson, we honored Courtney as a pioneering person. We do that every other year. We honor an amazing person in arts and culture with a pioneering voice. And we brought her to Hudson, New York, and did this exciting, like, This Is Your Life Courtney extravaganza at our venue with her. And we ended it by doing a couple of songs together with a all-girl teenage backing band called they're from the Rock Academy in Woodstock, New York, and it was the most exciting, like, reawakening, and playing with 15 and 16-year-old girls playing as our band was just this incredible unfolding of like a love reuniting. And we had been talking since then about doing a little reunion thing, and we had agreed to start kind of light and low tech, which was going to be an unplugged set in New York City for a fundraiser for Planned Parenthood. It was scheduled for March 14th. And the music director was a guy who did our MTV Unplugged with us. And that was a really special creative moment for me. That was my first ever recording with Hole, and first ever sort of performance when I first joined. So he was like a father figure to me in music. And so Courtney and I had agreed, why don't we just do something fun with Hal for a good cause for women? So it was scheduled for March 14th, New York City. Courtney now lives in London in the UK, and it was her who pretty much told me, a pandemic is coming and the entire world is going to close. I am not coming to play that show in New York. Me, the promoters, the venue, nobody had any idea. She told us, and she canceled the show, and she said, I will be trapped in New York City if I come to play the show. I can't do it. And she was the one who said quite, directly, like, get ready, Melissa, the world as we know it is done. It's going to be over for a long time. It's going to be done. And she's always had this like witchy poo knowledge about things. In fact, when I was honoring her, we were looking back at Celebrity Skin. And I don't know if you remember, but the album cover is in front of burning palm trees. And when we had her in 2018, it was at the height of the California fires and the droughts. And she's just always been in tune with like global catastrophes, global movements. Anyhow, and so she canceled the show. She was right. Rest in peace. This is really profound, is that Hal Wilner, the music director, was the first person I knew to die of COVID 2 weeks later. Yes. So he contracted COVID in New York City. He was part of that wave of everyone in New York. And it really, that to me kind of was literally the nail in the coffin of like, Courtney and I knew at that point that he'd always been somebody we wanted to do something special again with. And we also could see there's no touring ahead. There's no shows. You know, it's cute and quaint that we started thinking we could start maybe doing a reunion or maybe just like enjoying each other in music. And apparently not. And so that to me, like, you know, and meanwhile, which we can talk about later, is that I had already sort of retired as a touring musician, so it's not as if I've had an abrupt change as you have and as all my musician friends have, but my venue has. So like that's but all that to say is it oddly did affect my personal music vision for the future outside of my venue. It was truly just Courtney and I were just going to wing it and see what happens. Maybe 2020 is the year. Maybe it's the year that we want to play Live Through This live again. And NME was about to be honoring her as the big honor she just got this year, probably something like pioneering kick-ass person, whatever it is. But so they had been talking to us about us coming there, and it's like, oh, this is a good time to try it. No, said the virus. No. So in other words, it was a wake up to that. But on a personal note, considering, you know, my empathy, obviously, for all the catastrophes around the world, is that on a very modest, tiny personal note, as I have taken it as a regenerative moment and a time to be a mother, very focused with my daughter and enjoy the simple life of day to day and learning to bake with my daughter. So that's what everyone has been doing, to be grounded in the kitchen.
Yeah, that's really heartbreaking to hear about the shows, and I think that actually sums it up, where it's like the possibilities have been kind of like depleted. So the idea of, like, you know, the hope and having this endless possibility, and, you know, we'll do it tomorrow, it's totally, you know, it's fine, you know, we've got all the time in the world, and all of a sudden it feels like we don't, and you know, being stuck in one place and not being able to travel and not being able to be around those people that maybe you thought, you know, now that we have the internet and we're able to travel, you know, fly to the other side of the country, you know, and the other side of the world, and go and see whoever we want, and that is being taken away from us. It's a very kind of like hard slap of reality in a way.
Humbling. I think it's healthy. I mean, it is very challenging, and a lot of my friends not with children, well, actually it's like friends with children are in some ways hit even harder because of obviously responsibilities at home, but and jobs and work-life balance, but also just how hard it is on children right now to not have that freedom to play and be with whomever they want. But then it's also the single and creative, you know, luckily the single creative types can dive into a project, make a record, write a record, but it's the cutoff from the rest of the world that's really tough. And I know a lot of writer musician friends who are definitely now, you know, going into the 9-10 month, like and the fear of the winter kind of depression coming is very real for a lot of people. But I haven't even really been able to wrap my mind around, if I were your age, in the middle of making a record, used to living on the road and just expecting it to happen next fall, this fall, I can't really imagine how I'd be processing it. I mean, I know, like what you're doing, I would just find another way of connecting and use a tool in a different way. Obviously write and record in the ways that you can. But definitely starting TV shows. I mean, even with my venue, I started a conversation series for the month of October because I just thought, like, I can't not present music artists, cultural thinkers for an entire year. So we did a series over the course of a month of just like this, of just conversations, because I too am, even though I'm off the road, having a venue is all about connecting. Like, I want to connect the voices to the people, to thinkers, the conversation that goes with it. And losing that is definitely the hardest and most dangerous thing for both children and adults. It's like losing that exchange, the human exchange, which we were already being threatened by the rise of digital communication and social media. We already had that problem going on. So I remember, I mean, I haven't, because my daughter's not a teenager, but at the beginning of this, when I saw what was coming, it's the teenagers that I felt most concerned about, of like, how do you fall in love for the first time right now? How do you lose how do you do anything? I don't know. That's how I feel. Very, the teenagers, and then the older golden year people, the coming into like chapters where you need physical help and love. Yeah, I mean, everyone else, we're in the middle section. We can create, we can adapt, we can, roll with it.
I did have a question to ask you about your curation of Basilica, and the fact that you kind of pride yourself as a venue on booking kind of like maybe more unusual acts than other venues might. Like you're so forward thinking when it comes to your curation. My fear for what's going to come out of COVID is that the artists that maybe are making stuff that's a little bit out there, maybe don't have huge financial backing, or are not comfortable, maybe middle class artists, are going to be struggling so much that they won't be able to make something that needs the development, or needs maybe isn't hitting that mainstream market. And to me, I think that that's going to be an utter devastation for just the arts in general, because we need to have that. We need to have this sort of variety, and we need to have stuff that's super out there and super interesting. And, and you can have all the pop and the mainstream stuff as well, and that's cool too, but there needs to be all of it. And I just wanted to know how you felt about how you book and curate for your venue, how that might affect that in the future.
Yeah, I mean, I've been thinking the exact same thing. I mean, other than, because that's clearly what we strive to be, is avant-garde, underground. The whole point is we want to elevate voices that are not being showcased at normal venues or music festivals. So that's who we are. And a little background on that is that, don't know if you remember the 1990s, but my formative years as a teen, coming up into that music movement, the originality and the underground force that built that movement. And I was lucky enough, before I even played in a band myself, to see Hole, Smashing Pumpkins, Mudhoney, Nirvana, every single, in venues of like 50 to 100 people. So I saw that music movement coming out of vans, coming out off of couches, staying at my house on couch. Like, I was a DJ during that time before I even played in a band. And so I felt an underground movement that then eclipsed, after Nevermind, then after Siamese Dream, and then all this, like, by the mid-90s, it was insane. But I know the power of underground music, and I know the power of original voices that can like shake up a world or unite all of a sudden. So in many ways, Basilica was born out of my desire to recreate a space for that, for whether it's a teenager or an adult like me who misses that and longs for that, and a culture that's not about what you found on, sponsored on your social media, or just the real deal, like real deal originality, which is harder and harder to find because exposure to media has gotten so crazy saturated. I know why the 90s sounded that way, is that you had to go out of your way to discover music. I had to go to a record store, like walk an hour to go to the one record store where I knew I was going to be introduced to something new and exciting that no one else had heard of in my class, like that. That's how I discovered music. When you can just scroll on the doom scroll and find everything that's ever existed, that's not cultivating unique identities. That's just like showering everyone with like it's like a melting pot. of too many references. You don't have that one thing that then becomes yours. So I just recognized it anyway when we founded in 2010. I was like, we need to make a venue where we're always looking for that person that clearly hasn't been sort of like brainwashed by media, but have just found their cool niches and are doing. So that's how we always look to be. And our creative co-curators for our music festivals are exactly the same way. And one of them is a Dutch music founder for a Le Guess Who music festival in the Utrecht. It's one of the best, super similar, very large scale. It takes over a whole city. It's gigantic, but even a gigantic music festival books obscure things from the Middle East that we've never heard of. And that's the point, is you want to find the underground voices in the world.
There was one more thing I wanted to speak to you about, actually, and that was I wanted to know what you think that, like, people who, lovers of music, people who believe in the communities that we are making all over the world, like what they could do at this time, and also when we do start rebuilding, which essentially is going to be a completely different infrastructure. It's never going to go back to the way it was. What you think that everyone in our kind of like music and arts community could do to support each other? If you're a music lover, or if you're an artist, or if you're a venue, like what could they do?
Well, I think first of all, it's like never forget the local. So it's like forever changed, and make your neighborhood be your place that you're always giving to and always nurturing and not taking for granted. So like it's actually a lot of the social environmental movements of the last 20 years, which has been basically like get off fossil fuel, which does mean don't travel as much, and act local. I mean, that's really those are the two biggest calls that the planet is asking us to do anyhow. And stop shipping your food everywhere, stop shipping yourself everywhere, get everything as much as you can locally. And this has been, in terms of like the fairy tale written stories, like this has been the big fateful and important message of this time. And the climate crisis is beyond real, and for those special people with parents to understand that children, my daughter just turned 9, and she will never have known a day where the planet is not threatened and species are not going extinct. Like I remember that coming to an awareness, in my case, maybe when I was like a young teenager, and maybe for you it was, earlier than that, but these children are being born and raised from the day they're born to know a planet that is dying, that is due to the human behavior. And it will take every individual on the planet Earth that can change the way that they live, which is essentially getting off of fossil fuel and not using Amazon as much, and not using food imported. Like, where does your food come from? Where do your goods come from? Who do you support? Where do you live? And how do you live is really, that will help our local creators, our humans, our venues, and our neighborhoods. And most of all, our planet Earth, which is our communal neighborhood. And that's pretty much, the beauty of this humbling, awakening time is that's the message that environmental scientists and activists have been telling us since the 80s. And here we are, and we did not act fast enough, and we are 10 years too late on many, many areas. I will commend the UK has been one of the most progressive countries in a lot of their policies. And Denmark just announced that they're canceling their oil industry, and it will no longer be an industry by 2030. So, and they're one of the biggest creators of oil in Europe. So, this is happening slowly. Governments are doing, and I didn't mention earlier, but that is the 2020 mission for Basilica Hudson, is to leverage arts, culture, and communal gathering to inform on the climate crisis and educate people on how they can do their part to change the way they live. And the pandemic has done it for us as far as the think local and stop using those fossil fuels. And as a traveling musician who was coming to be like in the 90s and in the 2000s, it was understood this was happening, but I was having flashes on my last tour in 2010 when I was in Europe of this might be an end of an era, and travel is going to stop at some point. And as we see, it has happened here due to a virus, but at a certain point, it will stop. It's not possible to sustain like this global bonkers, greedy, go anywhere, do anything all the time. And these corporations that create those systems that waste so much fuel and money. And I don't know. I mean, it's like heartbreaking to say, because I do believe, I mean, for me, traveling, the reason I said yes to join Whole was I get to travel the world. Who gets to do that in their life? Like, this is the greatest gift in my life, and it made me a citizen of the world. I mean, I came from parents who were international travelers, so I was raised already with an understanding of we share a globe with people. We do not live alone in Canada, and I always was international thinking, and it's heartbreaking for me to even say that international travel, which is at a stop right now, and I believe will have to slow down throughout the modernization and climate catastrophe. I mean, places will be uninhabitable at a certain point. You will not be able to go to parts of Southeast Asia. You will not be able to go to parts of hot countries. So this is like the sobering awakening that is all the more reason to act local and stay in your neighborhood. And I believe it will shape a lot of children as well. I think that there will be less, I don't know if in Scotland there's a similar, but Canadians are world travelers. Like, I'd say, I don't know what the percentage is, but most teenagers, Canadian teenagers, go on a European backpacking trip. They after college or before college, put their Canadian flag on their backpack and they go stay in hostels and see the world that way. And that's like a huge part of Canadian mentality, is to understand that we have European ancestry and we are just some new world that came from somewhere else. And so it's such an important part of life, but maybe we just don't have to be like flying for the weekend to Paris, even though I want to. I want to.
That's it. I mean, there's not going to be a Paris if you keep on doing it all the time. So, yeah, I totally agree with you. And it's so conflicting being a touring artist, because I know that. And, I've spent a lot of time traveling to the other side of the world and lucky enough to go to America 3-4 times a year. I mean, to me now, thinking about that and actually reflecting, I'm like, that's bad. I should feel guilty about this. And being able to go to Asia and going to Australia and all those places that it takes days to get from tiny Scotland all the way across. It takes a long time. And yeah, this year has made me really reflect on that, because as a touring musician and someone who takes it for granted that I get to go to all these places, it's kind of like, whoa, slow down, stay in one place. And first of all, I was very frustrated about it. But then we've gone through this journey that we practically just talked about, where you feel frustrated, you're stuck in one place, your wings are being clipped. Then you start to realize that your community is pretty awesome and you have this all at your fingertips. And then you also start to think about the conscious effort that maybe staying at home is making, the world sustain itself a little bit longer. And that's something that, there's not going to be these amazing places that we can go and visit, in a world that doesn't exist. So, yeah, it's maybe like a journey that this year has taken on. And I hope that a lot of people have got there by themselves. And I agree. Yeah. I think it's definitely something that as a musician, I have the power to not do it if I wanted. And I think that maybe it will be something that, although it's maybe been forced upon me to slow down, it's probably for the best, and it's a time to reflect. And I think a lot of people, I hope a lot of like-minded people like us have thought about that this year that maybe didn't before. I mean, you already got there, so that's, you know, that's something, but I definitely hadn't. So I feel like I'm maybe learning a bit from this.
Also, you have a great opportunity locally. Think about all the teenage girls who could be throwing these down the tubes and picking up a guitar. You personally have a responsibility to your neighborhood teenage girls in Glasgow. You should be doing like free to all girl concerts in your space as fast as possible, because I know that for me, the traveling the world thing was definitely like a cultural exchange, but it was about those girls in the audience and those particular young people looking for their sound and their tribe. And you got them all over your own city that need that. And just think how cool it is for them to like find it in a local, approachable woman that can be a role model. That's really different than someone who just comes in and out of town for the day. So you have an assignment, which is find those girls and play free concerts and get them guitar lessons immediately.
Listen, you're giving me an assignment. I have to work now.
Yeah.
Oh, well, thank you so much for doing this with me. I feel like this is so eye-opening, and also it's just so nice to speak to you after so long as well.
Yes, no, I think about that show at Half Moon and your amazing talent and voice and guitar playing and like-minded sensibilities despite the different generation. So I was happy to get an email from you, and I'm happy that you're stuck in a cool city trying to make fun out of it. Get to work. It's amazing.
Well, I mean, Basilica for me is like the kind of like where I hold a independent venue that I remember you speaking about. It was such passion when we first met, which was probably not long after you opened. I think maybe 2013, maybe. So it definitely was kind of like, it's so nice to see you kind of like take that ethos and run with it and actually do it. So yeah, it was why I wanted to speak to you. So thank you so much. And you know, like, I'm gonna say if we ever make it across the water, which I definitely don't think we'll be doing 4 times a year again, but maybe I will make it back over, and I would love to come up and see it for real, because I never got a chance to visit. So and I hope that it flourishes.
Yeah, and I think that people coming to, when it does come back, you'll probably do longer stays. You know, the whole idea is to really maximize and not waste, you know, just like really, I think that's going to be a good result from all this too, is utilizing people's resources and time better. And so when you come to the US, you'll have to go everywhere, including Hudson. So,
yeah, that's it. Well, thank you so much. And thank you so much, and I hope you all the best for when this whole crazy world starts to repair itself. And well, take care.
Hey, thank you so much.
Bye.
We have come to the end of the first episode of HBTV. I personally think that you've been completely spoiled, but if you would like to be involved in the making of the next episode, then you can by joining my Coven tier on Patreon, where we're going to discuss future guests, features, and all that fun stuff. See you next episode.